So I think the title of this should be When Your Biggest Mess Becomes Your Message. My story is it's pretty typical, but I was in a place about 10 years ago, and I went through a divorce and lost my best friend and business partner right after that of a heart attack. And I turned away from God and was making a ton of money and living the lifestyle and, hot tub on the penthouse downtown, and was just really unfulfilling and not very happy. There's a lot of drinking, and I just was living the American dream. I had a real false identity with, chasing money, and I really had searched for a church, and I came across Restoration through a friend, and went and walked in and sat in the back with my head down, and really started going back to church. I kind of had a rock bottom experience, and after coming back from Belize, had like a 3-day drinking binge, and I was in church in Minnesota, and I just finally said to God, I can't do this anymore, and He started to transform my life. I met my wife, Emily, and soon thereafter, and was baptized at Restoration, and we started to date, and we fell in love, and got married, and a year later, our son Ryan showed up, and just super happy time in my life. I was growing in my faith. We prayed a lot together. We attended Restoration, and the day that the kind of the worst day in my life, I guess, hopefully that's the worst day in my life, was when my wife suffered from depression, and she was pregnant with our second son, Walker, and she was really in a bad spot, and I for some reason took my son to the Pilates gym with me, and never had taken him in ever, and not again have I taken him. But that morning, she just had not slept in like 6 nights and was in a really bad spot. So I just took my son with me. She wanted me to go. I came home from Pilates, and every light in the house was on. The TV was on. I'll never forget it. It's super vivid in my memory. Went upstairs and knocked on the guest bedroom where she was trying to sleep, and there was no answer. And I panicked and kicked in the door, and there on the floor was my wife, lifeless body. She'd taken her life, shot herself, and I just got down on the floor and just held her, and realized that my son Walker was there as well, and I kind of like tried to instantly figure out what I could do, and just realized there was nothing I could do. I called 911, and the first person, the ambulance just showed up, and the first person to come was Ron Johnson, and he lives right across the park from me. It just, my whole world just came crashing down, and I remember just walking around the park with Ron saying, why did bad things happen to good people? And I'm trying to be a good person, and I'm growing in my faith, and here, I was devastated, as you can imagine. For those of you who can't read, Ryan has his own kind of language, but this says, Happy Father's Day. I love you. So that's not coming down. But I never thought I'd be a father, and that's always a hard day. Mother's Day is even harder, but Father's Day is a hard day. I wish my wife was here to spend it with us, but man, when God works and
he and the nanny put that together. He wrote that out, and we celebrate that for sure.
That week between her death and the funeral, there was I just had a lot of questions, and I was starting my days with devotional and journaling and just trying to work through in my head how this could happen to me. You know, you hear about these things happening to other people, and you just kind of don't think this would ever happen to you. And I remember I was on top of Lookout Mountain, and I went for a ride. My parents were here watching Ryan, and I went for a ride, and I just had this amazing experience where I just flew up there, and I stopped at the top, and I'm looking at Mount Evans, and I'm leaning over my handlebars, and I'm bawling, and there's people walking around up there by Betcher Mansion, and I'm shaking, and I'm on my bike, I'm clipped out, and I'm broken, and I'm negotiating with God to that I'll be, and that's just how I am, right? I'm thinking I'm going to negotiate with God, so I'm negotiating with God, thinking, saying, hey, I will be a good Christian and be a good person for the rest of my life if you will please let my wife into heaven. Because some reason in my head I thought, because of what had happened, that she maybe wasn't in heaven. And as loud as I'm talking to you right now, louder, I heard audible, she is here. And it just washed over me. And I just leant over and I cried, and I got back on my bike after that. And I rode for like an hour and a half, and I don't remember anything until I got to my car and clicked out. And God knew at that time that I needed that. And I was kind of searching, and after what I'd gone through with my divorce and my friend dying and turning away from God, and it was just so unfulfilling and such a bad, sad place to be, even though I was, you know, making a ton of money and having all this fun and doing all these crazy things. God knew I needed that, and He may never talk to me again in my life. But he knew I needed that, and He never had really talked to me audible before.
So this is my little guy Ryan's room. It's just a great little spot. One of my friends painted a picture of my wife, and that's up on the wall. And every night we say, when we say our prayers, we thank God for Mommy in heaven. And she looks over him every night, it's really special. He's got a picture of his mom here, us as a family. And he doesn't really remember his mom, but he does through pictures and stories that I tell him. So it's kind of a blessing that he doesn't really remember, and that he'll always have, fond memories of his mom, and doesn't remember when she was so depressed. And this is the guest bedroom where she was sleeping, and this is the room that I kicked in the door and found her on the floor right there next to the bed. And it was really hard to stay in this house, but I decided to stay in this house because there's so many great memories here. And I know God is redeeming my wife's death, and it was just a very special place. And if you guys will notice, my house is purple because my wife's favorite color is purple, and that's not changing anytime soon. So it's kind of funny because people are, why do you have a purple house? And I'm like, oh, it's my wife's favorite color. So, but it was really hard to walk by this room, and I used to leave the light on and the door open, and now, it took a couple years, but kind of worked through all that, and, it's just a blessing to have my little guy, he doesn't know, he doesn't remember any of it, so thank God for that.
the changes that God has made in my life since the day that my wife passed, and when we talk about this, sometimes your biggest mess becomes your biggest message. I just want you to know that if you're going through something really hard, and there's all different flavors of hard, being in this world is hard. Jesus is the answer, and I want you to know that there is a family here and friends that want to surround you, and God is using this church, Jesus is using this church to heal hearts and to save people's lives.